If you don't know me, I'm Marc Silber, photographer, educator, and author here in Carmel, California. And before we go any further, make sure you subscribe and enable the bell so you don't miss any of our shows coming up. Now, listen, guys, I am really excited to introduce you to our guest today, Peter Asher. He's a legendary record producer and performer. We're going to be talking with him about his book, The Beatles from A to Z. He had a front row seat as they elevated pop music into an art form, and he was present at the creation of some of the most iconic music of our times. Peter, welcome to Advancing Your Photography and Creativity.
Thank you very much. Thank
Awesome to have you with us.
Great to be here. Thank you a lot.
Happy New Year.
Thank you for inviting me.
I'd love to hear from you what it was like to witness, and front row seat doesn't even do justice to it. Like, for instance, you write in your book about John and Paul. Paul was living in your parents' house. Amazing. And they went to the music room in the basement and they put together I Want to Hold Your Hand. And then Paul kind of says, hey, Peter, you want to come and hear this song? What was that like?
Yes.
You're the first person in the world to hear it.
You just described it. That was the story. I mean, at the time, you don't necessarily realize that something is as remarkable an event as it is. I mean, Paul, he lived in our house for about 2 years, I think. And he and I shared the top floor. And there was a little basement music room, as you say, that my mother used to give oboe lessons in. She was a professional classical musician. And she wasn't giving private lessons much anymore because she was very busy at the Royal Academy of Music. So she had told Paul he could use that piano whenever he wanted to. And yes, on that particular day, John had come over. I think one of the interesting facts is that they were in that room with just the piano. There were no guitars.
Yes.
So that was a purely piano song at the time. Though, of course, by the time it came out, it was a guitar song.
I never would have guessed, ever.
And they wrote it on piano. And yeah, Paul said, we've just finished this song. Do you want to hear it? And I sat on this little sofa and they sat side by side on the small upright piano and played I Want to Hold Your Hand for the first time anywhere to anyone. And I told them I thought it was amazing. I think the ultimate clue to what I thought is that I asked them, could they please play it again? And of course, that's what makes for a hit record. That's the definition of a hit, is the minute it finishes, you wish it hadn't stopped. And you in the old days, you would yank the needle on your 45 back to the opening groove so you could play it again until it wore out. And the other indicator, of course, is that they were delighted to play it again. They knew just how good it was, I think.
Was there some spark of recognition that, wow, this thing is going to go really far? It's going to...
I didn't think in those terms. I mean, I thought it was incredibly good. I thought everyone would like it. I thought it would be a hit.
Yeah.
I think it would change music forever, and we'd still be talking about it, whatever, God knows, 60 years later or whatever it is.
Many years.
No, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
But I did think it was incredibly good. I knew of them, as I say, I knew it was going to be a hit and everyone would like it. But I didn't know that the world would go insane and that the Beatlemania would take hold of the womanhood of the world and everyone would go crazy.
It's amazing.
I didn't know that.
So in your book, you I have it marked here. You're talking about art, and that's really apropos to our conversation today in terms of creativity. You said, when writing about music, one is indeed often circling around one of the most mysterious questions: where does great art come from? And you talk about a little bit. What are your thoughts about that? That you've been around not just the Beatles, but a lot of great artists, and you talk about in this book how their inspiration formed their art. But can you shed some more light on that?
I wish I could, and that's a big question. Nobody knows. You ask artists, they don't know. There's that famous story. Paul McCartney was in our house at the time, and when he woke up with the melody from Yesterday written in his head.
Unbelievable.
He woke up with that song stuck in his head and he was convinced that it was an existing song that he'd remembered, and he was asking everybody that day and following days if they knew what the song was. I wasn't there that day, so I missed this particular event. But I know that he asked my mother, who of course is a professional musician, and she said that she didn't know it. But he was singing the melody of Yesterday to people, going, what is this song that's stuck in my head? And finally, by sort of a process of elimination, he realized that he'd written it. And I mean, that's quite unusual. I mean, that degree of but he didn't know where it came from. But I think most people start songs by actually copying someone else.
Right.
Very often in pop music, certainly. And the Beatles talk about this a lot, and I mentioned in the book that they often say we started off wanting to write something. You know, when Paul wrote "I'm Down," apparently, he wanted to write something like Long Tall Sally, because they'd been closing the show with Long Tall Sally for a long time, Little Richard thing. So he wanted to write a similar Little Richard style rocker, and came up with "I'm Down," which is great. But its origin was an attempt to kind of replace Long Tall Sally on the menu.
Well, I think there was a spirit of innovation and as their popularity grew and they could do more and more stuff.
Oh yeah,
in
of
the
course
studio.
they grew up. They wanted to write songs about things other than at the time every song, every hit was just a basic love song from me to you, as it were.
Yes.
And they changed that. Even "She Loves You" was an innovation. Suddenly they were writing in the third person. It wasn't "I love you." It wasn't "Will you love me?" It was "She loves you." At the time, there weren't many songs like that. So even as simple a change as that took pop music in a step forward towards greater literacy, greater use of language. And then when you start to write whole songs that create another universe, now other people and characters, like "She's Leaving Home" is a story, and it's a story about people we almost feel we know, and here's what the parents thought, and here's what the girl thought, and it's a desire to get better, which I think is a very human desire, and the Beatles had the power and the wherewithal and the talent to do it, and they did it.
Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining us and giving us this great insight into creativity. It's really helpful.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, and thanks for inviting me. It's been nice. It was great.
Absolutely. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so you don't miss out what's going on. Well, thanks for joining us, and remember to get out and capture your own images of life. Love you guys. See you soon. Take care.